Hi guys, Ron Bongi here, and this is my second tutorial on end-to-end web development. We are going to go through Adobe Photoshop and Sublime Text 2. As mentioned before, Adobe Photoshop graphic editing, Sublime 2 text editing. So let's go through Photoshop. I will be showing you, instead of showing you all the functionality of Photoshop, which would take me a long time, just going to show you the important things that you will need, or which we will use um, for our web development projects. Um, what's cool about Photoshop is not the fact that I'm familiar with it, that's one, but more importantly, it's designed very well and it's optimized for web development. So I find it really very useful. Um, Unfortunately, for those of you who use Illustrator, I'm sorry, but Photoshop is the program that we will be using. So here's how it looks. When you first install it, it might look a bit different from this, but this is how it mainly looks. The main feature about Photoshop, which I like, is that it stores its images in layers. So those are extremely useful. Um, Say you make a mistake or you want to edit something, you just keep on creating new layers, and anytime you want to revert back to, a certain point, you can do that. So as I said before, I'm going to cover the main things that you need to know. So layers is one of them, and I have this little information bar, which tells me about different things about width and length that I've selected. First things first, I'm just going to quickly create a new box, and that's going to be, say, 400 pixels by 400 pixels. So in these tutorial videos, I'll be dealing with pixels, and I'll quickly show you how to change that. Here we go. Uh, Sorry, my computer's slightly slow. My main computer, the motherboard fried, so I have to get a new one within the next month or two. But for now, this is what we're going to be using. So you go under General, so that opens up a menu. Here we go, Preferences. You go down to Units and Ruler, and you change the ruler to pixels. Okay, press OK. And now every time you open a new file, you can get pixels to come up. Some of you will notice when you first start Adobe is that it's in inches. The first time you make a file and then you save it, and the next time you open Adobe, and you try to create a new file, it'll be in pixels. That's very important. So there's a bunch of other things which you don't need to worry about for now. Okay, so now that we have our 400px by 400px space, I'm going to explore a bit of how to use this. So let's just create a new layer for now. So this is a new layer button. Down here also are some other things. So layer masks, and we have folders. Folders are really important as well. The delete button, you can add some FX to each of these. So here we have a selection tool, so just basic selecting. Lasso tool is basically like a selection tool, but instead you can actually make custom selection shapes, right? And then we have the crop tool. We have the eyedropper, which determines colors and that sort of thing. Now, eyedropper can work basically anywhere. It can work on the sides of Photoshop. So say you find a nice color that you like, you can automatically change it, right? So we are just going to make it the default black. So let's make it default black. Press OK. Alright. So eyedropper. So next one is this tool, which is basically mini stamps. We will learn the difference between an editable shape and a rasterized one. But yeah, there's a bunch of other shapes that you can choose, calligraphy, different ones. Those are very useful. Next, we are going to explore the eraser tool, pretty self-explanatory. The fill-in tool, the paint bucket, And then there's the gradient. Gradient is a really interesting tool, and we'll deal with that later on our first design. Next, we have the text, so you can do regular text. And what's good about this is, unlike Paint, where you put down the text and you can't edit it anymore, and then you got to rewrite the text. You can, once you write out text, so if we write out some text right now, I love Photoshop. Let's put this on the new one. Oops, type. And then if we deselect this, right, then we can actually go back to layer, and if we select the text button again, we can go back to layer, and what we can do is we can edit this text again. And what also is cool is that, say you have an item already in that current layer, what you can do is it'll automatically create a new layer, and then it'll add the text. Otherwise, if the layer is blank, then obviously it'll add the text itself. Okay, so we'll just move this over slightly. There we go. And then again, with the text tool, you have certain properties. You have center, right, whatever you want. And while you're in the text mode, you can actually move the object too. And we'll explore that a bit later in some other videos. Next is the arrow tool, pretty self-explanatory, and then there are custom shapes. So the custom shapes, you have your rectangle, rounded, ellipses, tool, polygons, lines, and then custom shapes. So in custom shapes, you can do all these sorts of shapes that you see here. And again, like the brush tool that we saw here, we can select this button here, and we have a bunch of other banners and different things. And we'll use those when we're making our websites. Next, I would like to highlight the zoom tool. Now this is not really used. It's better to use the zoom up here, which is a lot more useful. And we'll show you exactly what you can use with your mouse and your keyboard to do some of these shortcuts. And then you have your colors, so you can switch based on what colors you want and stuff. And then this, if you click on one of these, then it opens up a foreground color picker, and you can do all that sort of stuff. Now to go through the menus a bit. So in the file menu, we have open, export, that sort of stuff, save as. One thing that you will need to do is when you're saving your images, we will save for web and devices, and we will primarily save them as PNG when we're exporting, because browsers can't read PNG files very well. Then you have your preferences. Keyboard shortcuts, I will show you in when we start building our first website why it's important to have good keyboard shortcuts. You can define some patterns. This we will use extensively for like backgrounds and that sort of stuff. Transform will be used also extensively for like rotating objects and that sort of stuff. Next, if we go to image, we have adjustments, that sort of stuff. Image rotations, canvas size, which will be also really important. Then we have like the new layer. This is more advanced menus as compared to the ones down here. Then we have selection, so selecting color ranges. That will be extremely important if you want to change colors of like an object and it's rasterized. Then we have your filters and creating noise and filters in different backgrounds, which will be really useful. Next, I want to highlight view. So we'll be using guides to like guide our images and that sort of stuff. And then next we have Windows. One thing that you might want to activate is info, which will bring this bar on the side here, and that will give you information about areas that you've selected, length and width, and that sort of stuff. Let's delete that. And also under Windows, we can see other stuff like other files and that sort of stuff. And then the help bar is available for whenever you need help. Okay, one last thing to explain is when you have a shape, you can go into blend options and add in a ton more characteristics to your shapes. So blend options, hold on. Okay, so here we are. So you can add drop shadows. So as you can see on the I Love Photoshop, we can have a drop shadow. We can bevel it a bit so it looks nice. We can add a bit of satin to make it look a bit better. We can add a bit of color overlay, so we can make it red. We can add a bit of gradient overlay, make it look like a different color. And then we can add some patterns, stroke. There we go. So I like that, so I'm just going to save that. There you go. That's Photoshop for you. In the next video, I will show you the features of Sublime Text 2 and how to use it and why it is what I consider one of the best text editors out there. See you soon.